Hey everyone, it's Brennan with BC Labs, and welcome back. So this time I'm going to be doing a video about FreeCAD. Some of you may have noticed that you don't see me using Fusion 360 very much, or SolidWorks, or similar. Those are all really great tools, but I enjoy using FreeCAD since I get to retain control over my designs. I don't love the idea of giving up commercial rights either. I feel like it's finally at a place that I feel it's a good time to cover it and get people introduced to it for the first time. So let's get started with, this drop down here is the gateway to all the different tools that FreeCAD offers. And you can ignore almost all of them. You're going to spend most of your time in Sketcher or part design if you're doing general CAD. If you're not doing anything crazy, you're not doing assemblies, you're not drafting things up in 2 dimensions, this is where you live. And in my experience, I actually just stay here because it takes you through the Sketcher and other, modes as necessary. If you select that option, if you select part design, then the first step, you can see it's a blank document, there's nothing here. You actually need to hit new or create new, and here we are. So you need a body. That's something that is the crux of the FreeCAD ecosystem now. Everything is made out of bodies. So you could have 2 or 3 parts in one file, which leads into the whole assembly design. I think that's why they made this change, because before you didn't have separate bodies. But the next step is to just create a body. So with that, now you can create a sketch and you select a plane. I almost always do X, Y, unless there's a reason, because this just means that if I'm building something and I export it as an STL, generally, if I treat this as the bottom, it will come into my slicer software in the correct orientation. You can see Sketcher is now the mode we're in. It automatically did that, and we're able to start drawing. It's going to be a cube. So right here is all of your drawing tools. Over here you have some view features, so you can kind of quickly change the view. You can quickly change the view like that, and you can go back to this angled view, but that's not really what we need here. So these are your constraints, which you're going to become very accustomed to, if not already, and they're very powerful. So speaking of constraints, we're going to just do that. We're going to make those equal. Now we have a square. Don't care how big it is. Let's make it 20. So now it's fully constrained. That means that you don't have to worry about, you can't modify it. So you can't accidentally click, drag, and mess it up. That also means just changing one of these values, it will stay fully constrained, which is really nice. So from there you can close, and then here's the other toolbar, the part design, the other set of tools that you need to be familiar with. So of course these stay pretty similar. These are just create new sketch and all that. So that's really leads you back into the sketch workbench. The 3D specific tools that I use the most are these. Well, really, these. So the most important 2 to remember are pad, and I don't have tool tips. Okay, there we go. And pocket. I don't know why they renamed these. This is an extrusion, and this is a cut. I don't know, maybe this is industry standard before. I don't know, but that's not what most places call them now. It's extrude, or it's expand, or add depth, or whatever. And this is to cut, or to remove, or however. So for example, you hit pad, and now you have a square or a rectangular prism. You make it 20, and you have a cube. Perfect cube. Now for mine, middle mouse button and right click lets you do this. So, and just right click does nothing. Middle mouse on its own does that. So for example, what if I wanted a cube a cube with a hole going through the center of it? So you could do something the same like before. You make these equal. Now I would want to I feel like there's always a better way than the way I draw, but I just add construction lines anytime I can. So something I've noticed in FreeCAD, which is a little annoying, it's a little finicky on how it does positioning of like equals. Like sometimes it seems to complain. Like I've been having these issues where it's adding redundant constraints, and it really shouldn't be. I don't know what it's doing. All you have to do is click there and hit delete, and it gets rid of the redundant constraint though. We're going to repeat this same process here. So now those are equal. So what's left? I haven't done it for this one. You can't do a line on a line, which is kind of weird. Maybe it's just because of context, but it's a little annoying that I want like this line in the center of that line. All right, so let's make it 15. So the important thing about a pad or an extrude is that it extrudes closed bodies. Now there actually are a few ways you can look at this. There is the closed body of this here. There's the enclosed body of here. And there's only this piece. So it depends if you want to consider, if you ignored these, if you made these construction lines, it would make the whole cube. Or technically you could extrude just this part, or you could extrude the difference. By default, FreeCAD's extruding the difference. Some CAD software lets you select it, but in here it just defaults that way. And then boom, now you have this. So it's really pretty intuitive at its base if you're already kind of familiar with the tools. It's a little disorienting, kind of like Blender, that they just packed all these features in here. I mean, there's tons of architectural focus features, and I mean spreadsheets for bombs, and mesh modification, just so many features that you just don't normally need. If you do need them, I'm sure it's great, but when you don't need it, it's overwhelming. And I kind of wish there might even be a way of hiding a lot of this. But for the average person, I'd recommend that, honestly, if there's a way, because it's just too much. Now, so with this, that's the first most important tool, which is pad. Now, next would be pocket. So if you just grab this face, grab any face you want, but in this situation, grab that face, create a sketch, and, I just want to, right now I have construction lines on, so make a circle. Again, this is why I probably should have put it dead center. Makes it easier, less construction lines. So this carries me into something I think is important, though. Right here is the create external geometry. You can use this to select faces. They're based on these other faces here. And those now are linked. So technically, if I did something like, let's make this, I don't know, 19. No, that won't do it. I want to do it to this. So if I did that, you can come back over here, and those pieces of a geometry have moved. And that's good, because once you anchor this to there, using a coincident, or a constraint point on object. Okay, my bad. Once you've done that, though, so let's say you do that, and you do the same thing with your circle, so your circle's on these surfaces. Once you've done that, ignoring whether it's centered or not, these move together. I don't think this one didn't get that treatment. So now, every one of these lines is tied to one of those. So if I just go back and I fix this to 20, they've all moved. Nothing's out of whack. And this is important because a lot of the time you're going to want to use an edge as a reference point, as a datum of some sort. And how would you do that if you can't constrain it to one of those other surfaces? You'd just be guessing. And that's how I started out with this, with CAD before I took any classes. I was just kind of guessing. I was like, okay, well, this looks like I'm against this line. And it's just not the right way of doing it. Honestly, if you're doing it right, your sketch will be fully constrained. Unless there's a really good reason not to. Like, there are sometimes that the constraints or the dependencies get a little twisted, and it's good to leave some, room there. But I don't know, 9 times out of 10, 95 out of 100, you're going to want to be fully constrained. So, oh, wrong one. So I grab the line, I grab the dot, equals. I'm hoping that gets fixed in a future update, because I have not been having issues in FreeCAD. It's been very smooth experience, except for these redundant constraints. And they can just be deleted. So, I mean, it immediately knows, and I delete the one it tells me to delete, and it works. Anyway, so as you see here, now our circle cannot be moved. It can be expanded and contracted, but it cannot be moved. You just set a insert diameter. There's also an insert radius or constrained radius if that's what you want. So with that, let's do, 12 and a half. So now we're going to do the cut. So there's a couple options in here, and they harken back to what you'll see in other software. Charlie! And they'll harken back to what you've seen in other software. There's the dimension, which is where you actually just set a length. So if you make it 1 millimeter, it doesn't even go all the way through. You can do through all, which goes through everything. To first. I believe that actually just goes to the other side, technically. Up to face. It's useful if you're trying to only go as far as a specific face. You're not trying to go past that point. 2 dimensions, which if we were doing it on this face, we could cut both directions. But most of the time, you're going to be wanting to use dimension or through all. So let's just do through all. And so there, we have this little device. This little, I don't even know what you want to call it. So the only other major tool that I use constantly, besides, like fillets and such, is the revolve. Occasionally use the sweeps and stuff, but that's a little bit more advanced. Revolution is a pretty good other tool to have in your belt, especially if you're doing a lot of, spheres and circles and the like, or if you're trying to track a face. I really hope you all enjoyed this video and learned something. Tune in for more tutorials like this one. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.